You are listening to the Booktrospective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominyse
and Keeley,
and you are listening to the Booktrospective Podcast. And happy Thanksgiving, happy Black Friday, and happy Small Business Saturday. This is actually, we're recording this on Black Friday, but whenever you listen to it.
It's Cyber Monday.
Oh, Cyber Monday, and actually Travel Tuesday, because I'm looking to buy flight and they say Tuesday is like Travel Tuesday, so whatever. Whatever you're celebrating. So we are super excited because we're doing Iron Flame.
Yay!
And if you don't know, this is going to be a 2-part episode, so we're recording this in one sitting, but you're only going to get part 1 this week, and then next week will be part 2. So we plan to go over both parts. Obviously, at the end of part 2, we'll do our fan casts and like theories for the next book, etc., etc. But for this first episode, we do plan to stop and discuss things so you don't just only get recording content. But before all of that, Keeley, how was your week?
My week was okay. Not super eventful. I am excited because, you know, as I think we've talked about me moving into a different space.
I think we did.
But I came up with a new logo for it because, you know, I wanted to kind of a fresh start when it came to a little facelift, I guess. So I'll show you. I haven't seen it.
She's gonna show me.
I was like, I want a new logo. I want it to look cute, a little minimalistic, but not like, I don't know. And I was like, I don't want to, you know, pay too much money, seeing as though, you know. So I just designed it myself, and I like it. So,
what are these chains? Do they open these windows? You know,
yes, they do.
So we're recording in the daytime. I don't know if I'm gonna cut this out, so whatever. But Keeley's shop is in like this creepy old building, which I think we've talked about multiple times because normally record at night and it's scary. But it's very daytime and I can see, and it's like got these chains and they open the window.
Yeah, so they open like greenhouse windows.
Oh, that's cool. Do you just go out there? Like if you wanted to, you just. Oh.
They were open a bit during the summer because it got super muggy out there.
Yeah.
And they just closed it a couple weeks ago.
I feel like
you can just go out there and they're very creaky
I'd probably like collapse one. I'd never touch that. That would be my luck. I'm just gonna not.
So here's the logo that I came up with.
Ooh, I like it. So it's so cute.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited for her to move because she has lots of ideas already, and I'm gonna just continue to send her ideas too. So. It's so exciting. Well, what did I do this week? Obviously, it was Thanksgiving. I purposely did not cook anything. I made deviled eggs, and I tell my family every year that I'm not bringing nothing but myself. I'm the gift that keeps on giving. I did host, but we had that, and that was what I did this week. I only worked one day, so... yeah, I think that was it. Okay, well, we've got to get into this book because I'm so excited. But before we even do, well, no, I guess we can do that first. I was going to ask you what your predictions were prior to reading it, but we can do the blurb and stuff first.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Keeley with the blurb.
And here we go. Now, I hope I don't stutter and mess up on this one because I have been reading blurbs to my mom all day and did perfectly fine, and now watch me mess up.
It's okay, because I just had to record the disclaimer 3 times, so.
All right. The first year is when some of us lose our lives. The second year is when the rest of us lose our humanity. Xaden Ryerson. Everyone expected Violet Sorrengail to die during the first year at Basgiath War College, Violet included. But threshing was only the first impossible test meant to weed out the weak-willed and unworthy and the unlucky. Now the real training begins, and Violet's already wondering how she'll get through. It's not just that it's grueling and maliciously brutal, or even that it's designed to stretch the rider's capacity for pain beyond endurance. It's a new vice commandant who's made it his personal mission to teach Violet exactly how powerless she is, unless she betrays the man she loves. Although Violet's body might be weaker and frailer than everyone else's, she still has her wits and a will of iron, and leadership is forgetting the most important lesson Basgiath has taught her. Dragon riders make their own rules. But a determination to survive won't be enough this year, because Violet knows a real secret hidden for centuries at Basgiath War College, and nothing, not even dragon fire, may be enough to save them in the end.
Alrighty, so did you have a word for part 1 or the whole book?
Wild. I would say wild.
I agree with that. I was gonna say chaotic, so same thing, same thing, you know. So did you have any predictions for what this book was going to look like?
Honestly, I may have. But after reading that, like, everything is like, okay, so I did have a few small ones. After reading Fourth Wing, I was kind of on the fence on whether or not Lilith, Violet's mom, was a good guy, a bad guy, maybe a little in between. So, you know, yeah. Other than that, not really. I did not expect anything. Anything.
I really wasn't on the fence about Lilith. I was on the fence about the other siblings, or just like the sibling group. Just because I feel like it's too easy.
Yeah.
And I still feel that way.
Yeah, we still have some books to go, so.
I know. This is only the second book in the series, which the series is called the Empyrean, which is the, like, head dragon. So just put that in your mind. And I'm going to do, like, my general spoiler-free summary. We haven't spoiled anything yet. But I don't think... I don't know. I guess... It just really didn't go, like... It definitely didn't go how I thought it was going to go. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, in that, the little fable or whatever about the 3 siblings and stuff was really foreboding and kind of seems a little foreshadowy. But
it does. I'm so bad. Like, when I get on TikTok and I see people, I'm like, I just miss everything. Like, I'm like, am I dumb? I'm like, why do I miss all of these, like, clues? But, okay, well, All right, general summary of part one. We start right at the end of the first book of Fourth Wing. And if you don't, just a brief recap of Fourth Wing. I guess I can do that. So if you haven't read Fourth Wing, this is a general summary of that, which is we have a fantasy world where there are four specialties, and the war is called, or the world is called Navaar. Well, that's not the war, that's the country. Yeah, so they're in the country of Navaar. They're at a college. It's called Basgiath. And there are infantry, which are like foot soldiers. There's scribes, which are like their historians. There are riders, and they're dragon riders, and they are part of the army. They're like really the muscle. The infantry is like side people. And then there are the healers. And we open in Fourth Wing to Violet Sorengale. She's the youngest of three. Her mom is like second in line to the president kind of thing. And her mom makes her go to the Riders Quadrant. And Violet has some kind of condition that she was born with. Her bones break and her muscles pop out and all kinds of stuff. She's like weak. And she was supposed to be a scribe until like 6 months before the book, essentially. Her dad is dead, her oldest brother is dead, and her sister is a writer, and is a couple years older than her. So she goes into the quadrant. She has a lot of challenges. People try to kill her because she is like the general's daughter. And she, fortunately, falls in love with what is supposed to be her enemy, which is Xaden Ryerson. His dad killed her brother, and then her mom killed his dad. So there is that. But, enemies to lovers, we love that. And Violet pairs with not one, but two dragons, which is the first time that's ever happened. She has Tarn, who is like 100-year-old biggest dragon that there is, black dragon, and then Andarna, who we learn is a toddler dragon and should not be bonding, but she does. And so they are kind of like going through this. She has a friend. She makes friends there, but she had a friend there. His name was Dane. And when they bond with dragons, they get signets, which are like their powers, and it's special to them and their dragon. And unfortunately, Violet starts to like learn stuff from what Xaden is into, and Dane, who is her trusted best friend, his signet power is that he can read recent memories, which we don't really know what that means. And he has to touch you. He told her initially he had to touch a certain part of her body, but that's not really true. So he kind of steals her memory, gives it to his dad, who is her mom's like second in command. And at the end of Fourth Wing, they are sent out. The entire college does what is called war games, and they are sent on their mission, but actually they're sent to their death, kind of, because there are these things called venin and wyverns, which are supposed to be like scary stories they tell you at bedtime. But they end up being real, and some of her friends die. She gets stabbed, and that's kind of, well, no, that's not where we leave off. We leave off at the end of Fourth Wing with her brother that is supposed to have been dead for like the last 6 years being alive. Not only that, he is living in Xaden's house in this part of the country that was supposedly burned to the ground when they killed Xaden's dad. So that is Fourth Wing in a very, very, very small nutshell.
Yep.
So this first part of Iron Flame opens up at right then and there. So she is healed. Her brother's signet power is mending. So there are healers and there's menders. Menders have like an actual power. Healers just use like herbs and stuff, like a doctor. And he can mend anything, like furniture, a person. He just, essentially, they're not supposed to be able to like bring people back from the death. But he can heal her, so he does. And she is like, obviously she's pissed because why are you not dead? And she's pissed at Xaden because you knew that he wasn't dead. And they have to kind of decide, what do they do from here? Obviously, she is, I didn't say this, I guess, but she was a first year. Xaden is graduating. He's a third year. And so she really needs to go back to her college. And all of her friends are still back there. And so they do go back. And Xaden goes back as well, and they are able to kind of sneak back in, and Xaden is sent off to his his post as a cadet, because he's a lieutenant now. Mm-hmm. So he's a lieutenant, she's a cadet, and he's graduated, and they have made it dragons. So his dragon's name is Sigale, and again, Violet has Tarn. They're mated, so they're really not supposed to be apart from each other, but because some of the teachers are pissed about what went down, they only let them see each other like once a week. So everybody in that situation is pissed. But what can they do? So Violet is like back, basically trying to find a way to help Xaden and her brother with their mission. And while she goes back, they also learn they have a new class. It's called RSC, which is Rider Survival something. I can't remember what the C is. It's in my notes. But it is intense. So the second year, they start like basically training them as if they were to get captured by the enemy. So they are interrogated. They are put with like the infantry and the scribes and things like that. And we meet a new villain-ish. We have several villains, and he is one of her teachers, and he is out to get her and really all of them. And so we basically see them throughout this first part, and at the end of part 1, Violet is really in a compromised position, and we have to see, like, is she going to be able to get out of it? So that is as spoiler-free as I can get. That was hard, and I am so sorry if you feel spoiled, because that was hard. But without further ado, if you don't want to be spoiled, you guys have had a month. So, or close to a month, not a full month, but if you don't want to be spoiled, then this is time to pause and come back and listen to this later. If you are ready, we are ready, and we're going to get started. So, I never look in the book. You guys know that. I don't read the blurb. But I know people had a lot of issues with Iron Flame, like, from Amazon especially, but, like, they had blank books, like, the cover was blank. No. Okay. The spine was blank, or they didn't have, like, what do you call this part of the book? Anything special? Just, like, the inside cover?
Yeah. I know, the end papers.
The end papers. Okay, so there's a map, which I have never looked at until like 5 minutes before we started recording, even though I've had the book the whole time, which is nice because I didn't know where anything is. Sometimes they're like, oh, it took 18 hours to fly there. I'm like, okay.
Before you get to that, on chapter 17, do you have the dragon on yours? Oh,
I don't know.
Because a lot of people didn't have. I know my copy has it. I think we got. Yep.
We got
I think
copies.
the copies that I got in were
shout
good
out
ones.
to whoever Keeley's
whoop,
plug is. So I just like I'm just looking before we even start. I never realized how many. I mean, they say like, okay, in Violet's year there was like 70 writers, like, or something. I think they started with like 160 and then they died and there was like 70 or something at the end. I don't know. But that's just like first year. So then there's also second and third years. Mm-hmm. And we know that Violet's class was the smallest class, and basically they had like they keep getting smaller.
Yeah. But
like on one of the first pages, it like breaks it down because it's confusing. So again, like there's a wing leader, there's 4 wings, and then there's a leader of those, and then there are 3 sections within that wing. So there's claw, flame, and tail section. And then within each one of those sections, there's a section leader. And then there's an executive officer. And then there are 3 squads within each one of those 3 sections. So there's like 15 to 20 people per squad. And then each squad has a squad leader and a second in command. So there's essentially like, what is that, 60, 120, 180, about 200 people is what it should be, like 180 to 200. I don't think there are because people have been dying and they've been getting smaller. But I guess I didn't realize like how many people there were. So, all right. So this book opens up and Jasenia, who was Violet's friend before they like went to their, what do they call them? I don't want to say, like, it's not their squads because that's not what it is. But before she became a writer, Jasenia is narrating. And I've been laughing so hard because TikTok is like, it's like Jasenia is describing all these spicy scenes for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so funny. But Jasenia is still like our scribe, our narrator. And we open, and there's actually like a notice at the top of when Erasia was burned. So Erasia, again, is the home of the Ryerson family, and supposedly was burned off the face of the earth when Xaden's dad led the rebellion and then was executed with all the other traitors, essentially. But we open up with a notice of the burning. And we open with Violet, and she is in the kitchen with her brother, Brennan. She ended up sleeping for 3 days post her venin attack, and she is like waiting really to go see her dragons, but they wanted her to eat. She was eating some biscuit, and she was like, it is really good. And we know that there's been a change with Andarna, but we don't know what has happened just yet. We find out that Violet slept through her 21st birthday. And I feel like they don't do anything about that.
Yeah.
They didn't address it. Like, okay, here's your, like, post. I know we're at war or whatever, but here's cake.
You're alive.
Yay. Moving on. So Bodhi and Imogen are still there. Remember, unfortunately, we lost Liam and Soleil at Athbean. Resin. Why can I don't, okay, the fight, it was Resin. Mm-hmm. So what was Athbean? Because I'm like, those things are synonymous to me and they're not. Is Athbean like the post part they went to, and then Resin was like the town?
The town.
Okay. The whole book, I'm like, I just like use them synonymously. I'm like, they're the same place. So when she sees Bodhi and Imogen, she realizes that there's a meeting going on and there's like all these people in the room and Xaden is in there. And she hears them say they're close to losing this war and they need a luminary. We find out at some point that a luminary is a forging device that intensifies dragon fire. So they essentially feel like they need this to strengthen their defenses. We know that Xaden was like stealing weapons and stuff in Fourth Wing, but they want this luminary. Brennan says no because I think they want to steal it from Bisgayeth. And he's like, no, innocents will die and it will affect the wards at Bisgayeth. And I mean, even though there are bad people at Bisgayeth, everyone there, like there's not everyone, and there's like a whole country. Like it's not just these people. They want to send the cadets back to Bisgayeth, which would be Xaden, Garrick, Bodhi, Imogen, Violet, and then there's like 3 others. She says she can't remember their names, and then Soleil and Liam are dead. So we know they're not obviously with us anymore, but everyone else, they pretty much want to send them back. And all these people in the room don't really trust Violet, and they want to keep her as a prisoner and, like, interrogate her. Obviously, Brennan and Xaden are not going to go for that, but they blame her for what happened with Dane, which is crappy. Like, she didn't know. Well, she knew, but she did. I feel like it was naivety, because, I mean, would you trust your best friend? Like, you know, she could tell he was different, but he always came off as, I want to protect you. Like, you wouldn't think that someone was just stealing your memories.
Right.
So we learn when Violet reaches out to talk to Taryn that Taryn was actually born from a line that hatched at Xaden's family home. So Xaden, again, like, he's in Erasia, which is in the... I don't know if they were a separate country, but it's called Tarandor. And Taryn's line was hatched there. Like, we learn later in the book that there is a whole hatching ground, kind of like the Vale at Biscayeth. They have that there. So Violet gets a moment with Brennan, and she addresses him about faking his death. He says that, is it Naolan? It's not Nolan, it's Naolan.
Naolan, yeah.
Naolan didn't fail. He says, so we do know now that Naolan did bring Brennan back, and he said he siphoned and saved Brennan, and Brennan just woke up on a cliff, and he has it. I don't know how to pronounce his dragon's name. Mayorba? May something? I don't know. It doesn't come up too much, but he has a dragon, and the dragon was wounded but still alive, and there really is no mention of what happened to Naolan. Like, we don't really get any more, because he wasn't there when Brennan woke up. He says he didn't come home because he can't, like, fly for Navaar knowing that the leaders are liars and they're cowards. Brennan says they've only known about the wyvern for a few months, but that Xaden and the others didn't know as much on purpose. So Violet, I know that female main characters just have to be like this. Like, I hate this so much all the time. But really, like, this whole first part, she is on my nerves. Because she is so pissed at Xaden. And I'm like, that, like, I get it. I do. But it's not about you.
Right.
Like, he can't just say, especially after we see her actions in both of these books, he can't just say, Violet, your brother's alive. Like,
right.
Because she's gonna get on Tam, fly off, and, like, he can't tell you that because you're reckless and because it's so, like, he's protecting so many other people. He cannot just tell you that.
And honestly, is it Xaden's secret to tell?
Right. I mean, Brennan could have found a way.
Right.
He could have gave Xaden a letter.
Yeah.
If he wanted you to know.
He could have directly told Xaden, hey, tell my sister.
Yeah. But he didn't, like, and for years. And so she has so much blame on him about this whole situation. And even this stuff. And also, after you know what Dane did, you should be glad he didn't tell you as much stuff.
Right.
Like, that should immediately negate this entire conversation. I would be like, you know what? Don't tell me anything else when I have to be. And she just, like, constantly is like, I want more. And I'm like, do you not realize the people that you're at school with?
Yeah. Stop holding secrets. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah, like, what do you want? And so she irritates me. Brennan also tells her in their conversation that the venin have massively increased over the last year, and basically they're headed for Navaar within, he believes, the next 6 months. Some people say a year, but Brennan thinks they only have about 6 months. He says Navaar won't tell, like, the rest of the country because they are so concerned about their image. Like, they don't want, and we know that from the first book, they hide this instead of telling people that they're in danger, and they let innocent people die outside of Navaar just for the sake of, like, keeping this secret. Brennan tells her that their dad always said that the scribes hold the power because they write history and news, and they're just both wondering if their dad really knew the truth. They find out one of the venin did, or it was like the main venin, the one that was fighting with Violet, actually ended up getting away from their attack, and that's who they call the Sage throughout, and he's like the main head guy, right? Because there's the Sage and then there's like generals. Yeah. Brennan also says Erasia has a ward stone, which Vi says she thought there was only one. So the ward stone is what they have at Basgiath, and that's what makes the wards that protect them from venin and outsiders. And apparently there's one at Erasia. It's not working because there aren't any wards there, but there is one there. And she says, you know, we were told there was only one, which goes right back to what he just said about the scribes. Vi reaches out to Tarn and is telling him that she knows that they have to go back. They need to protect everyone else is there. She wants to fix the wardstone because she's like, that will protect them and then they won't need as many weapons, which is, again, what Xaden was doing in the first book, was stealing those. Brennan says that she asked about, like, Taryn and Sigel and them, and Brennan's like, yeah, Sigel never liked me. I don't think Sigel likes anyone, though, because she really doesn't like Vi that much either. Like, she tolerates her.
I think she has a semblance of respect for her.
Yeah.
Because of the whole, like, saving Andarna situation.
Yeah.
I think she has some respect for her, but she doesn't necessarily
like her.
Yeah.
Like, she wouldn't have picked her. We do find out that Andarna has matured. She's doubled in size, which is strange because, again, it's only been 3 days. And she has black scales now. Taryn tells her it's basically because she used so much energy at the battle, it caused her to grow so fast. And he says it would have happened anyways, but she's essentially an adolescent now. She's not full grown, and she needs to get back to the Veil to enter what they call the dream sleep and finish growing. And they're supposed to basically go to sleep for like a few weeks, and that helps them grow, and then they're adults. Taryn says that adolescence is a trying time, and I love Andarna throughout this entire
Oh my
book.
gosh, yes.
She is so amazing. And so she's basically a 16-year-old teenage girl. So, you know. Vi thinks it's weird that she bonded 2 black dragons, but Taryn says that even Andarna wouldn't know what color she would be until she becomes that. And then he also says that they can basically pick whatever tail they want, which is cool. So
yeah, he said that it's a matter of choice and necessity or something like that.
Kind of like their signets, like it's whatever they need. Vi tells Xaden that they're gonna have to go back, or they're gonna kill all the other the other cadets that are the traitors' kids. And she says that, you know, her mom won't kill her, but Brennan disagrees. He thinks that Lilith will kill her when she comes back. We learned that the other 3 people or cadets that were with them in Athmine and Resin are Kieran, Mason, and Aya. And they're also marked ones. She was the only one that wasn't marked that ended up there. And they say, like, Lilith didn't have anything to do with the games, and that it was actually General... Is he a General Atos? Colonel Atos, which is Dane's dad, is the one who planned it. Which we know, like, he's the one who had wrote out the missive that they read, and it was in his writing. But Vi's really not sure, like, because her mom is kind of like the top guy. Would she have had input in it? Like, we just really don't know. Brennan says if Vi goes back, Dane's going to touch her and going to expose everything. But Xaden is planning on training her how to shield. Don't know how he's going to be doing that, but hey. We actually do get to see Andarna, and she's really wobbly. She's like a newborn, like, cow or something. You know how they can't stand. And Vi's worried that she can't fly, and Andarna is already snappy. she was like, because she's like, I'm not a baby or something like that. Like, yeah. So they head back, and we find out that graduation is in 4 hours. So Xaden is getting ready to graduate. So on their way back, Taryn tells Vi that over 600 years ago, the dragons started to bond to help humans protect against venin. So it hasn't been like since the beginning of time that this has happened, and the dragons are the ones who made the choice to do that to help the humans. She considers how upset she was at Taryn for the secrets, because obviously Taryn knew whatever Sigel knew, and whatever Sigel knew was what Xaden knew. So, Violet, get over it. But I literally put, girl, get over it. Vi tells Taryn to tell Sigel that she wants to talk to Xaden on the flight home. And I was like, can they not communicate anymore? Because I was confused. We find out that they can, but I'm like, why would you tell Sigel to tell Xaden when you can just tell Xaden? But, okay. And then Xaden says, like, don't you remember that we can communicate? Because I was like...
I think it was her just being petty.
Yeah, I think it was too. Because I'm like, I'm confused. Did we lose something? But she doesn't want to communicate with him mentally because she feels like it's too intimate. He says he can remember, like, way more intimate times, and she covers up his mouth and with her hand, and he, like, kisses the palm of her hand. But she is, like, set on the fact that she doesn't want to be with Xaden, and she can't trust him. Like, girl, stop. And she asks, can they trust any of the scribes at Viscayas? And Xaden says no, but Vi doesn't want him to say more because of Dane. So this is basically what we said. Like, she doesn't want information, but she does want information. So she puts this, I put, this idiot says that she is 99% sure she doesn't trust Dane. I'm like, what do you mean 99? Like...
Right. Okay.
I was like 110%. So they get back. We find out that the second wing is who won the battle. And when they first get back, they see Rhiannon and Riddick, and they are like, oh my god, we thought you were dead. And Vi has these letters that she has to get from Liam's room because we know that, like, when someone dies, they burn everyone's stuff, like, no matter what it is. And she wants to get the letters because we find out that they're for Sloane. Xaden tells Vi that he has known about Brennan since his quote-unquote death. So that confirms that for her because she knew that he knew, but she didn't know how long he's known. So for 6 years, he's known this information. Then they kind of come into formation, and all of the first, second, and third years, the current ones, are all down in, like, the little pit thing, wherever they meet. And they're reading the death roll, and they go, Xaden Ryerson. And they walk in as they're saying it. So Lilith looks at them, and she actually looks relieved. And so Violet's like, okay, maybe she wasn't involved in what happened. Dane's dad says that because basically Lilith is like, okay, so why are their names on the death roll? And Dane's dad says he reported them because they've been missing for 6 days. He also says that they should be disciplined for coming back late, and Xaden is like, we were attacked by griffins. We know that's not true, but that's the story that they're going to stick with. So Lilith is shocked, and Dane's dad is like, they're lying, they should be interrogated, because essentially Xaden gives, like, a full story that's half truth, but replaces it with griffins instead of venin and wyvern. And then they try to ask Violet, and she tells them, like, she did get stabbed, and she was, like, passed out for days, so they don't believe the story, at least Dane's dad doesn't. But everyone else is like, I mean, they have no reason not to believe that. Xaden gives Lilith the missive that was written by Dane's dad and says it took days to find someone to heal Violet, which is why, like, it took them 6 days. And then Dane comes up, or no, Lilith like looks at it and she's like, okay, well, this is in your writing. So she's like, we need to meet in my office in 30 minutes. And Dane's dad is like blaming Violet and says this is all her fault. Dane comes up to Vi and she's like, if you touch me, I am going to fucking cut your hands off. And then, oh, we love Xaden so much. So Xaden like basically threatens his entire life and being, and he basically says like, every time you look at me, I want you to think of Athbean. And Dane is like, he swears that he didn't have anything to like, well, he swears he didn't know what would happen. So he doesn't say that he didn't tell his dad the information, but he is basically saying he didn't know they were going to be sent to battle and all of this stuff. That night, most of the cadets start getting drunk because they basically have like a couple of days between when like now and when the new cadets come in on the parapet. And Xaden gets his first post, which is of course like the farthest post away at Samara. Mm-hmm. It's basically like a whole day's flight. And basically throughout this whole time, Xaden and Violet I didn't take too many notes because they're just bickering about, I don't trust you, you don't tell me anything, and I'm like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. So they like argue basically the remainder of the time, and she's set on the fact that they're not going to be a romantic thing. Xaden is vying to like win her trust back. And they also learn that they're going to have to take turns to like fly to each other, but instead of every 3 to 4 days, which is what the dragon said in Fourth Wing, they're only going to be able to do it at like once a week. And essentially Violet will get like 2 days off and she has to spend one whole day flying. And so like essentially they only get to spend like hours together. It's never even a full day that they get to spend together. Mm-hmm. Or Sigale and Taryn. Ados, or Dane's dad, he comes up and he threatens them, and he basically tells Violet, you need to be careful who you share your war stories with. Insinuating, like, if she tells Rhiannon, if she tells her sister, that he will kill them or her. So, yeah. Xaden leaves because he has to leave for his post, and Rhiannon comes up, and we find out that she's the new squad leader, and woo-hoo. Dane is the freaking wing leader. Yeah. We knew that was going to happen, but so happy for Rhi. We also learn that they're going to have a new class this year, which is called RSC, or the Rider Survival Course. And essentially, they are going to train them for they're still learning like flying stuff, but they're going to learn non-flying stuff. So they can be like randomly kidnapped off campus at any point in time. They're going to be interrogated twice. And like Rhiannon's like, okay, well, what if we break an interrogation? And they're like, don't. So we know that they'll kill them. Like, there's no secret that they like to kill people around here. So we go to Parapet Day, and Vi and Rhiannon are the ones who have to like check the names as they come up before they cross the parapet. And Dane's over there too. I mean, he's basically in the same spot that Xaden was in last year, but not hot. There's another guy that comes up a first year, and he gives Jack Barlow vibes. And he literally throws someone off. So. He threw someone off, didn't he?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. What is that? What is wrong with you? So Violet really doesn't want to watch the kids cross the parapet. She's basically decided, like, I'm not learning anybody's name. She doesn't want to do it because she knows what this year looks like for them. And then Liam's sister comes up. So Sloane is her name. We learned in the first book in Fourth Wing. We thought that she might be deaf because Liam knew how to sign, but she's not. But she literally like looks just like him. She's blonde and all that. And Violet looks at her and she's like, her hair is down. Like, she doesn't look like she's gonna do well. And Dane told them, like, you cannot give them any kind of pointers. You have to just let them fight or die, essentially. But she had promised Liam, like, I would take care of him. So she gives her essentially a hair tie and tells her how to make it across. And Dayton starts to complain, and she's like, this is Liam's sister. And he basically shuts up because he knows that he's kind of the reason that Liam is dead. Mm-hmm. But Sloane realizes who she is and says that she hates her. She hopes she dies. She hopes they don't commit her soul to Malik because she knows that Liam died to protect her. I'm like, that's not really Violet's fault.
Right.
And he died because his dragon got attacked by, you know,
right,
a venin or a wyvern or whatever. So I'm like, that's not fair.
He died because his dragon died.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's, and she had saved Liam. Like, that's not fair. But, you know, I mean, I get it. Your older brother dies. You're upset. So I get it. So Violet's like, well, I'm gonna have to save her, and she hates me. But she makes it across, and then a boy comes up that Violet recognizes, and he's like, he says his name is Arik, and she's like, that's the name you're going with? And she says he has like these striking green eyes, and we learn that this is the king. I can't remember what his name is. Batari, something? I don't know. It's really not that important. But the king of Navaar, this is his third son. And they're surprised that he's there because one of his other sons got killed at threshing.
Yeah.
And we learn later in the book, because I don't think this is in my notes, I'm pretty sure Xaden is the one that killed him.
Yeah. Or had something to do with it.
Something to do with it. So maybe he was like Xaden's age. Maybe they were the same year. But he's like, he basically says, like, this is my made-up name. His dad doesn't know he's there. Like, we learn later, too, that his dad thinks he's, like, out gallivanting for his birthday or whatever. And so her and Dane obviously both know who he is because their parents are always, like, around the king. But they let him go on, so whatever. So they make it across parapet, and, you know, they are standing down there in formation. Of course, just like with her year, a couple of the first years run. But this is different because, for one, there's a dragon there, and the dragon's name is Solus. And the dragon only has one eye. We learn either here or later that this dragon belongs to Varish, who is one of our villains. He's a new teacher this year, and the dragon, instead of burning them instantly, waits until these, like, first years are behind Violet's squad and section, and then, like, Taryn's like, watch out for Solus, and they jump down, and he, like, essentially burns, like, all of third wing or third
pretty
squad.
Much all of third.
One of the third something. Like,
third squad,
a whole squad gets burned plus them, and then, like, I think someone in Violet Squad, which is one of the people that was with them at Resin.
Was it like Kieran or something like that?
Yeah, it was him. And Violet's back gets burned where she doesn't have her, like, vest on. But they're like, oh my god, like, and then he tries to, like, do it again, and Taryn's like, you will not burn what belongs to me.
And I was like, yes! Yes!
So, yeah, like, Taryn's not having it, but it's already, like, a little shady.
Yeah.
And then Sloane originally was going to get put in, like, a different squad. Yeah, second squad, or something, but they make her join Violet Squad, and she's pissed, but that's where you're going, girl. Get over it. So Vi goes to the scribes, and she's basically decided that she's going to look for the Book of Beginnings or some books on the beginnings of Basgiath, because her goal, again, is figure out how to get the wars up at Eratia so that they don't have to keep stealing weapons. She also decides, like, her and Imogen are going to start running every day because she is just, like, basically, when they were at Resin, the other girl, Soleil, she died because the venin can, like, suck all the power out of the ground or something like that if you're standing on it. And so Violet was like, we have to be fast. So they basically start running. Everybody's like, that's weird. But she's like, we have to build up our endurance. They start, like, all the, like, first year cadet training. And on the first mat day, Sloane is like, I want to challenge Vi to the mat. Now we know that Violet is like, I mean, she's not like the strongest thing, but she's good. Like she can hold her own. Obviously, Xaden trained her, like, and Imogen, like she's good. And they're all like, Sloane, she'll kill you. And we learned that even though Liam was like the best in their class, Sloane is not. But they went to like 2 different foster houses. And they basically say that once Xaden and like some of the older ones of the relic kids like got into the Riders Quadrant and like started doing really good, they stopped training them before they came because they want them to die. So that's why Sloane is not good. Then all hell breaks loose because the kid that was on the parapet, the like Jack Barlow kid, we never learned his name, but he comes up and he's like, "Who's Violet Sorrengail?" And Nadine, who's in their squad, is standing next to her, and she just like jokes, she's like, "I'm Violet," and he snaps her neck.
Yeah. I was like, oh.
Oh my god. And they're like, what the heck? So Violet's like, I'm Violet. And so they start fighting. And he like is choking herself, but she remembers like she has her daggers and stuff. And Xaden had told him like stab him in the back and like their kidney and stuff. So she like just stabs and stabs and stabs until he goes limp and dies.
One thing that I wanted to point out on that, let me find it. That I made sure to write down. Where does it say? Gotta find my little tabby. Okay, so it's in that chapter. It's on chapter 10, page 87. He says secrets die with the people who keep them.
Oh yeah.
Which is something that
comes up later.
Ados
said to her.
Had said to her before her mom pretty much banished him. And yeah, so the first year, he said secrets die with the people who keep them, he whispers, bringing his nose an inch from mine. His eyes are light brown but rimmed in red, as though he's on some kind of drug.
Yeah, so there's a lot of mention of red rimmed eyes, which we'll get to, and I miss all the details. I get a lot of details and miss a lot of details. So I did want to point that out. So there's that. Also, I didn't mention that Dane's dad does get banished by Lilith because of the whole situation that went down. I don't know where he went, but like somewhere far away. But Violet's basically like, okay, he's like targeting me. He's sending people to kill me.
Yeah, and another thing that I wanted to point out. So although Ados isn't there anymore, him and Varish are like really good buddies.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
So honestly, I don't know who's worse between those two because I don't know. I almost would have liked to see what Ados did because I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot of trauma in this book. Okay. So she kills that boy. We never even learn his name because that's it. So Violet goes for her first visit to Xaden, and they search her, and it's really like they've never done that when they left before. And so and it's Varish who comes and searches her. So he has it out for her, and he has like a goon squad of older cadets with him too. And they like dump all her stuff out. They're real crappy. And so then she gets to Tyrion, and he's like, well, good thing they didn't search me because they are still sneaking out weapons, and they're on Tan. So I love Xaden so much. So we get to Samara, and I think she goes to his room first, but she can like feel like their like connection, and she's like, it feels like he's beneath me. So she goes like down, And he is in a fighting pit, like sparring without his shirt on, like literally like the hottest, sexiest thing that you've ever even thought of. That is what that is. So she's like standing there talking to some other lieutenant or whatever, and she's like, "What are they doing?" Essentially, the place that they're at, the general, whoever is there, they have one like pass for the weekend, and whoever has it has to defend it, and whoever wants it has to fight for it. Like, there's no fair game, there's no like schedule of it. So essentially, Xaden is fighting for a pass to have time off while she's there. So, and she's like watching, and she's like, "Why is he holding back?" And he gets distracted because he senses her or hears her or something. I don't know. And so he does get like, the guy gets one punch in, and she's like, "Finish him," basically, like Mortal Kombat style. And he does.
I love that you said that in Mortal Kombat style.
I love it. So she's like all hot and heavy about it, but again, she's like, I'm standing on business. But they do kiss. They don't have sex, but like Xaden basically says he wants her to love him, even though like Violet says like, we could just have sex like first year, and he's like, no, like I want you to tell me that you love me, and they're not just doing that. And they basically spend like the day arguing about that or whatever. So that's essentially it. And then she goes back home. So when she gets back, they've been doing rider training. But Andarna, obviously, again, when she came back to the Vale, she had to go into the dream sleep. And so Varys is like, "Where's your dragon? Like, where's your other dragon?" So she comes back, and she's basically in punishment because Andarna has not come to practice. And he was basically, like, one of the times he told her, like, the next time if she doesn't come, there will be consequences. So he goes, it's Varys, her, and then what's the other guy's name? I don't really pay too much attention to the teacher's name.
Was it Markham?
Markham?
He
Whoever the
Markham
wielding
is the head like scribe.
Yeah, it's like
I know that he's like got some shady stuff going on, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I cannot think of his name. It's really not super important. But so him and another teacher, like the teacher that normally works with her when she practices her lightning power, so he makes her wield 41 times. And we know that
yeah.
It's like car. It's like car?
No. Yeah. Yes.
Car? I think it is car.
Yeah, I think so.
I wish there was.
Yep.
Like
it's car. Two R's.
Yeah. Okay. So General Carr, General Varys, or is he a lieutenant? I don't know. It doesn't matter. He's somebody. And then her. So he makes her wield 41 times, and we know that if they use too much of their power, that they can basically, especially her, they can burn out. And so she is like collapsed on her knees, and he's like, "Oh, just like give me," like when she got to 40, he's like, "Just give me one more." And basically, like Taryn grabs her and like flies her off, and he tells the other dragons to like get, I think it was it Riddick maybe, or Bodhi? Bodhi's still there.
Bodhi, Imogen, and
the marked ones.
Aya, I believe.
Yeah, he sends for them. He basically like he kind of drowns her in the river, so she'll cool off, which helps. And yeah, like he's like, "Come and get her." So we know, like Varys is out to get her, like one way or another. So after that happens, Vi gets abducted for her first lesson in RSC. So it's her, Rhee, Sawyer, Riddick, and then there's also infantry and scribes with them.
2 scribes, I believe. I think so.
And some healers. Yeah, everyone's there. Like, they're basically, like, they take squads at a time. Like, everybody doesn't go, but they take different squads at a time. And literally, she was, like, walking through the quad or whatever they call it, and they put bags over their heads. So, they're supposed to work with the infantry and, like, everyone else to figure out this map. They're basically in a wooded area, and they're supposed to figure out where they are and figure out how to get out. And it's only supposed to last for like 24 hours or something like that. Of course, they do this right when Xaden comes, and she knows, like, they're punishing them.
Yeah, there was no coincidence.
Yeah, they're trying to keep them apart. Like, the dragons are together, but they're keeping them apart. And they also make them drink this potion. So they've concocted this new potion this year, and it dulls their power and their connection to the dragons. And Riddick is pissed because he's like, this is not legal. I love Riddick too.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So they do that, and they essentially get lost in the woods. And what they don't realize is, because they're not really working together, is that they have two different maps, and so they get super lost. So they're lost in the woods, and they run into a dragon. And whose dragon is it? It is Jack Barlow's Dragon Blade. Obviously, she hates Violet because she brought a mountain down on top of the rider. Yeah. So, as was deserved. So Violet, like, they had all kind of told everybody, like, if you see a dragon, like, this is what you do. But of course, people get scared, and a couple people do get killed. Some, like, infantry, and yeah. So some people run. And Tomas, I think he was infantry.
Mm-hmm.
He basically, like, saved the one who was running. Like, somebody runs, he, like, grabs them, but then he ends up getting burned. So, yeah. After this whole thing, they kind of get rescued or whatever, and they be like, oh, we're so disappointed in you. Blah, blah, blah. We don't care. So Vi goes to the scribes after they get back from this, and she goes to talk to Jasenia. They talk about the boy who was killed. So there was a boy that was killed one day when Violet was talking to Jasenia, like, out in the, I keep calling it the quad, I don't know what it's called. They were out somewhere. This boy gets dragged out by Varish or Markham. Somebody. Both of them. And he's, like, screaming, and they essentially, like, are like, he's getting killed. So Jasenia tells her that he came down and requested a book, and, like, all the scribes, and at the beginning of this chapter, it says, scribes are required to record all book requests or something like that. And so Jasenia recorded it, not thinking anything of it, and then he was killed. But we learn that Jasenia hasn't been recording Violet's requests. So Jasenia tells her that the first time Violet requested that, like, Fables book, she didn't write it down, just, like, not to protect her, but just because she couldn't find the freaking book. And she didn't want to be, like, not able to find it. But then she just, like, didn't record them. So, like, Violet realizes, basically she's like, okay, we can trust Jasenia. And she already has been, but Jasenia tells her she realizes there are a lot of missing texts in the library, and Jasenia wants to help. So Vi is like, look, I'm trying to figure out how the first 6 built the wards. And so that's, like, the first 6 are the first riders who worked with the dragons to get the wards up at Beskayeth. And so they're in cahoots now. We go back to the mats, and Sloane is up for her fight, and Violet is on her first year-ish all over again. So Violet poisoned some cupcakes on the opponent squad, and, like, basically it had something in them, and then Violet has this powder, and when she blows the powder into the opponent's face, it, like, activates whatever the poison was. So Sloane's getting her butt kicked, and Violet is like, you know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of that scene in not White Chicks? Is it White Chicks? Yeah. When they were like having that rap battle with like the two white girls.
Yeah.
And then they're like, your mom sold, oh, her breast milk looks like this. And she like blows powder.
That's one of my favorite scenes in that movie.
That's what it makes me think of, because Violet has like this powder like in her hand, and then when she gets close enough to the opponent, she like sprinkles it in the air, and it incapacitates the opponent for just a couple of seconds, which allows Sloane to get the upper hand, and Sloane basically makes the girl yield. And after that, she approaches Sloane and she's like, look, you are going to take our help. And Sloane's like, no, I'm not. And so she tells her, look, I have 50 letters of Liam's that he wrote, but he couldn't send because, you know, the first years cannot communicate with their family. And she says, if you want them, you will train with Imogen, and each week I'll give you a letter. And I was like, good. Like, she needs help.
And another thing that so same time frame or whatever. So I love the bonding between Imogen and Violet.
Oh,
like,
I know.
I'm really starting to like Imogen.
They have like buddy cop energy.
Yeah. And there's a specific part that I highlighted that I absolutely loved between Violet and Sloane, where did I say Violet and Sloane? Violet and Imogen.
Yeah.
And Imogen was pretty much saying, you know, I don't need to know your private information. Violet scoffs and says, well, you're not sleeping with me. And Imogen says, you wish you were my type. I'm phenomenal in bed. And I'm like, I just love that.
Because Violet has decided that she's not going to tell, like, she's basically distancing herself from all of her friends because Xaden basically told her, if you can't lie to them, then you need to not talk to them. Because that's his method. But Imogen tells her, like, look, obviously you have issues. She does not want to hear about her and Xaden. But, like, Rhiannon would, and she would listen.
Yeah.
And she's like, you need to talk to your friends. Like, Xaden thinks that works, which it doesn't even work for him. But obviously it's not working for you. So she's like, you have 5 minutes to tell me whatever your problems are, and I'll suffer through it. But you need to go talk to your friends. Violet is still like, I don't want to tell them because, again, Dane's dad had, like, threatened, like, if you talk to them, I will kill them. And I get that, but also, like, they're all in danger every day.
Right.
Like, you can't make those decisions. So, that's kind of what happens. So, in this time frame, Dracinia starts, like, sneaking her books, and they're really, like, there's no information. And also, like, Violet and Xaden are going back and forth, and they basically are being kept. Like, one weekend she goes, and he has to work the whole weekend. It's that kind of thing for a while. And this is when Vi tells Imogen, like, they're keeping her apart. And that's, Imogen just tells her, like, get over it. Like, most writers have to keep secrets. That is just, you're working in you're in, like, the FBI. You have to do that. Like, agents don't go home every day and tell their wives, well, I killed somebody in Russia today, or whatever it is. Like, they can't tell them that. And that's basically everything I just said. Rhiannon also gets a letter from her family, and it is they basically sent an announcement that they had sent out to her village, and it says, beware of strangers seeking shelter. In this time of unprecedented violations of our borders, they are counting on the border villages to report. So we know that outside of Navaar, the Wyvern and the Venin have been attacking, and so these people are like refugees, and Navaar's like, don't, like, ice them out. So shady stuff is going on.
And I'm surprised that even got through, though.
Well,
I mean, if they're not looking into
everybody.
Yeah,
because Xaden starts writing Violet letters. That's part of his thing. He's like, I'll tell you as much about me as I can. So he basically writes, like, little, like, letters about his like relationship with Liam and stuff like that, and they are like redacting stuff, or like they are going through all of their information, and like it's like if you it's like if you talk to someone in prison, like they will like cut stuff out. But when her and Rhiannon are looking at this, Professor Markham comes in because they're in class, and he like snatches it and he brings it up to the class and is like talking about it. And Violet gets pissed during class because they're lying and she knows it. But Rhiannon's like, what's going on? And she can't tell her. So she like goes outside and just like shoots off lightning. And so like the girl is pissed. And then she just shows up at the archives unscheduled. And Justinia's like, you cannot do that because we're going to get caught. Like, she only wants her to come on Saturdays because no one's in the library on a Saturday. And I don't know what day this was, but she just went down there.
Which I was like, girl, chill.
Right, like, this is what I'm saying. This is why Xaden doesn't tell you stuff. Because you are unhinged. You have to have some self-control.
Very impulsive.
Yeah, and he is like the picture of control. So Xaden comes from a visit, and he's pissed because he discovers the little like research that her and Justinia have been working on. And he says, well, she's like, I need to go meet with her. And she's like, do you want to come? And he's like, because he wants to know, like, how do you know you can trust her? And he's like, well, I'll come because I'll know if we can trust her. I made a face at Keeley. So on the way, they run into Nolan. So Nolan's the mender. Naolan, it was the siphon that sank Brennan. So that's a little confusing. But Nolan is the mender that Violet has been going to for years for all her, like, broken bones. And Violet just says, like, he looks terrible. Like, he's lost weight. He looks tired. And he says he's been trying to mend a soul, and he's been, like, working on it for months. And we also learn at some point, like, they used to be able to just go into, like, the healer quadrant or whatever, but now there's, like, a room in the back that's locked off, and that's where Nolan always is, like, real shady. And did you have any thought of, like, what they were doing?
I had no idea what they were doing, but I knew that it had to be something, because, I don't know, has it gotten to the part where Rhiannon had brought it up? And I know probably. Riddick had talked about something. I don't think
they bring it up a few times.
Yeah, but I knew there was. No, I think we're almost to that part. But yeah, no, I knew that there was something going on. Had no idea.
Yeah, I knew it felt shady, so I assumed it was, but I had no idea.
Yeah, did not know that that's what it was going to turn out to be.
Right. So, yeah, so we learn later what it is. I was super shocked. But yeah, so they run into him, and then... that's when I put Riddick, so they did, because my next note was Riddick thinks that they're using Nolan for interrogations. So, obviously he's a mender, so in interrogations, they probably beat the crap out of people and then make him heal them and then beat the crap out. That's horrible. Like, could you imagine? Like, just kill me, but I can't die because you keep healing me. So, Violet and Xaden are both mad at each other because they're both keeping secrets now. And Violet's basically being petty because she's like, haha, I have a secret. So, they meet with Justinia, and he's basically like, he's okay with it. The next practice, and Darna still doesn't come. And Terrence pissed because Varys is pissed. And Varys is like, well, I guess you want punishment. And Terrence like, no. He's like, dragons do not answer to humans. And he's been saying that. And they're basically like, well, Violet answers to us, even if your dragon doesn't, yada, yada, yada. But Tyrion's like, okay. So he goes up to Solus and bites Solus in the neck. And Solus is Varys' dragon. So again, if something happens to Solus, something will happen to Varish. So Varish is like, okay, it's fine. Like, I'm backing off. And Terran's like, that's not good enough. And Varish is like, you're right. Humans have no right to summon dragons. And Terran's like, get on your knees, and makes him get on his knees. And Violet's like, okay, like, I'm good. And he's like, no, get on your knees and apologize. And so he does. And so obviously Varish is pissed. Like, he was just embarrassed and reduced to nothing.
Yep, and I thought it was hilarious.
I loved it. I loved it so much. But yeah. And we also learned that, again, we said Solus only has one eye. Terran is the one that took out the eye. So they've had interactions before.
They have beef.
They got beef. Ground beef. Oh, cracking up. So, Vi walks out with Rhiannon because she's getting ready to go see Xaden again. And Rhiannon is complaining about the gauntlet. She's like, this is just like torturous. I don't know why they do that. But Violet's basically like, you know what? They do need to make them do that. Mm-hmm. Because we learned last year, like, the gauntlet actually does prepare them to, like, mount and stuff. And if, like, Violet barely can do the stuff she needs to do with Terran. If he wasn't, like, a supporting dragon, if any of the other ones, like, she would have been dead. They would have let her fall off and all that stuff. So Vi is like, the challenges are necessary because it prepares them for the real world. And she basically starts crying about, what happened with Liam. And she almost tells Rhiannon everything. And who is listening? Varish. So he's like, just like, that's interesting. Like, your little stories or whatever. And of course, he, like, checks her bag and all that good stuff or whatever. So this time when she gets to Samara, Mira is there. So we find out Mira has been reassigned to the same post as Xaden. And before she can even see Mira, Xaden is like running up to her and like, say you want to kiss me or something like that. Oh no. He says, ask me to kiss you because he told her like, I will not kiss you or do anything unless you specifically ask. And she's like, what? And he's like, say, like mentally, like, ask me to kiss you. So he does. And it's basically because Mira's there and like he wants her to stay in his room, and there would be no reason for that if they weren't a couple. So Mira comes and she's like, okay, like whatever. But then Violet goes off with her and they like kind of start like talking or whatever. And Mira realizes like, oh my God, you love him. Like, this is not even just a fling that I already hated, but you actually love him. And she does. Vi starts to ask Mira questions about the wards and the ward stones because Mira's signet again is extending the wards. And Mira says like, Violet wants to know like, how do you make the wards? And Mira says you can't make them. You can only extend them. And then she says like, that's classified information. You really shouldn't be asking about it. Violet starts telling Mira how she doesn't really trust the reports that are coming out, and she really wants to tell her the truth, but she like drops like a little hint or whatever. And what we come to find out from Mira and just kind of in the book is that all of these attacks, they keep trying to say it's dragons, which I'm like, who would believe that? But that's what they've been telling people, that all these attacks are like dragons outside of the city. And Violet just asked Mira, like, what do you think it's wyvern? Because Mira obviously knows the stories that their dad told. And she's like, no, I don't believe that. And she's like, are you sleeping well? And so Violet's like, okay, I'm not going to go anymore because she obviously doesn't believe me. And so there's that. When Violet gets back to Basgiath, she has to try rolling dismounts. And Terran's like, absolutely not. Like, you're going to fall and, like, crack your neck off or something. And we learn, like, she tries to get into Nolan, but she can't because Nolan literally has a wait list because he's back in this locked room all the time. Then in history class, they learn about another attack, and a boy named Mason died, and he was like a lieutenant now, and he was one of them, like, that was with them at the Battle of Resin. And we're kind of starting to put together that all of these deaths, like either at Beskayeth or that, like, all the people that were at Resin are dying.
Mm-hmm.
Dane tries to talk to her at one of the, like, matches, the fighting matches, and she won't talk to him. So this jerk challenges her to a fight, and since he's a wing leader, he can do that, because that's what Xaden did, like, last year when he realized that Violet was poisoning her people. He challenged her, and wing leaders have the right to do that. So he admits during their fight that he did take her memory, but he said it was only a flash of Xaden talking about Athbean. And she asked him, so why did you say that you'll miss me? Because right before they left for what they thought was War Games, she had on Xaden's jacket, and Dane wanted her to go with their squad or whatever for the War Games, and she said she was going to go with Xaden, and Xaden wanted her to go with him, so he was like, I'll miss you, which Violet took as he knew I was about to die, and was like, I'll miss you. And Dane says, no, I didn't know anything, and he said, I was going to miss you because you chose Xaden. She says she doesn't believe him, and Dane asks if he knows who gave Xaden his scars, which we'll remember, like, one of the times that they slept together in the first book, he has 107, like, lash marks on him. And Dane says, it was your mother that did it. And I put, duh. Like, I don't know. Why Violet hasn't put that together, I have no idea, because that was blatantly obvious to everybody else. But she tells Dane, like, I'll never forgive you, and he taps out. Rihanna is like, you have to talk to me. After that, she's like, I noticed, like, she noticed how she changed in class after they found out about Mason dying, and she's just like, all the stuff and, like, the way you've been acting since you guys have come back. And Rihanna, like, kind of puts it together about Dane's signet. Because everyone knows it's classified, but that means that they don't know what it is. So Violet tells her he stole a memory, because she's like, why are you and Dane, like, not close? And she's like, he stole something from me. And she's like, what? Like, does it have to do with, like, what could it be? And that's when she puts it together. And Violet's like, he stole a memory from me. Rihanna asks what killed Day and Liam. But at that same time, Arik comes up, which again is the king's son, and he has a broken wrist. But he's like a badass fighter. Like, he's basically like Liam. He's a Liam. Violet tells Rhiannon, please, like, just don't keep asking me stuff because I don't want to lie to you. And Arik asks if, like, Reed, like, leaves, and then Arik asks, like, is she catching on? Were you going to say something?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, I was just going to point out that Violet is doing the same thing to Rhiannon that
Xaden does to her.
Yeah. And she's like, just don't ask any more questions.
Like, that is going to make me ask 10 million more questions.
Right.
Like, what is it? What is it? And, like, just tell her something. Like, you don't have... You could easily say, like, you could have said Dane did anything. You could have said Dane's a jerk because I'm with Xaden. Like, you could have lied, and you don't want to lie, but that's not a lie because that is true. Like, he also is pissed about that. Give something. You could say, I'm struggling because Liam died in my arms. That is true.
What killed, Liam and
his dragon was attacked and he died.
Or I really can't talk about that right now.
Or say, I got stabbed and I was asleep for 3 days and, like, my memories, like, I don't know. Like, something. Like, you're being sketchy, obviously.
They're talking about selective truth throughout here. Like, I mean...
Yeah. Come on now. You're being a hypocrite.
Truth to tell.
You're being a hypocrite. She was, and she was driving me insane. So, Arik was like, is Rhiannon catching on? And Violet asks, are you lost? Do you go here? And he says, they haven't hidden everything if you know where to look. He says his guards started carrying daggers with the little disc in them. And she knows that he knows. And he says, why else would I be here? Meaning, like, the Writer's Quadrant. So
I was like, hey,
I
yeah,
know. I like him.
Ark.
I like Ark. So he knows. Like, he knows something is going on. And, yeah. Violet has a nightmare, which she has been having them since the attack. So she has these nightmares where the sage, the venin, is like, I've waited centuries for someone with your power. You will join me. And he, like, tells her also all the time that it's going to be love that makes her... You'll turn for love. You'll turn for love, yes. And Xaden has, like, come for a visit, and so she basically tells him that the first wardstones were carved, not found. So she's gotten, like, very minuscule information, but she's learning some things. And her and Xaden decides, like, I'll take you down to the forge where he's been stealing his weapons from. And Varys catches her, and Xaden is like, all of his, like, shadows are, like, literally, like, coming out of him, like, you're not touching her, and I would have folded like a lawn chair. But she's like mentally, she's like, you cannot, like, I have to go. Because he basically, Varys has come to take her for RSC. And she's like, I have to go. Like, you can't, I have to go. You know that. So she goes. So this time they take her, Rhiannon, Riddick, and Sawyer. And they know that this time is their interrogation practice. So obviously, like, what are they going to do? Like, she has tons of secrets. So they are, like, in this room. There's 5 beds, and there's a bathroom, and then they give them drinks and, like, biscuits and jam. And Rick is like, we all need to share our whatever our secret is, like, or a secret with each other, so that when they make them break or try to make them break, like, we know what the secret is, like, we're all together. And they're like, why are there 5 beds? Are we waiting on someone? And one of them is like, no, normally there's 5 at a time at this point, but so many of them have died that they didn't, which, like, Nadine has died. So that would have been the other second year. Violet smells, like, the drink, and she's like, don't drink it, because it smells like the same potion they gave them the first time they took them, and they don't want that connection, because she can't talk to Taryn, and they can't use their signet. So she's like, don't drink it. But they've been eating the biscuits and jam, and they're like, that's why. Like, they basically gave them Popeye's biscuits, and then, like, they're, like, dying of thirst. And I was laughing because it's so funny that they were worried about this bathroom, because I feel like in books and, like, movies and stuff, there's never, like, no one ever goes to the bathroom. So they were, like, very pressed about there being a bathroom down here. I'm like, they're not gonna let you get up and go to the bathroom.
Right.
Like, why does it matter? But nonetheless, they all end up, like, cuffed to their chairs, and the professors leave, and they're like, uh-oh, because they're like, well, we're not the ones that are going to interrogate you. So these, like, stranger lieutenants or whatever come in, and they start attacking Vi because they assume, like, she's the weakest, and they want them to give up their secret. Riddick is so funny. What does he say? He goes, it's under my mattress or something like that. Like, whatever. He just, like, says some off-the-wall stuff. So they are, like, beating Violet in her face. Like, they just start beating on her. But then they're like, okay, we need to start beating on them because she's going to care about her friend. So they start doing that. And she reaches out to Xaden because he's still there. And she's like, okay, well, what time is it? And he says it's, like, almost midnight. So it's only been, like, a couple hours. And she's assuming, kind of like the last time, that they're only going to be down there for a day. But Xaden will be gone by the time that she gets out of this. So Varys comes in because it's taking too long, and he brings Dane. So she reaches out to Xaden and is like, they're bringing Dane. And he's like, okay, I'm coming. And she tells him, like, no, because Varys basically hints that, like, that's what he wants. Like, he wants to know that her and Xaden have like this secret communication, and that Xaden will come down here and protect her. So she's
and he
like,
wants a reason to punish him too.
yeah, and he wants to get Xaden, like he wants to get him. So she's like, no, like he's testing a theory. He wants to see if you come. So like, don't. And Dane comes down there. And he's like, why am I here? And Varys is like, they're not breaking or whatever. We want you to use your powers. And Violet's arm is in a sling from the mat or something like that. Mm-hmm. And Dane's like, regulations say that they're supposed to be healthy when they do this. And she's not. And so Varys is like, use your signet on Vi. But Dane says no. And Varys asks, well, then who are you going to practice on? Because we learned that Varys is his Dane's coach. So Violet practices with Carr and Dane practices with the devil. And Varys starts like playing on his emotions. And he's like, we're running out of civilians to practice on and mend. So I'm like, ding, 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 ding. I thought that was what they were doing.
Yep.
In the room. Mm-hmm. And Varys also goes, well, Dane, you can learn why she chose Xaden over you. First of all, embarrassing. Are you not embarrassed? Because I would have been like, first of all, I'm the wing leader. Don't expose me to her friends who already assume that, but don't put it into words out loud. So Dane starts to reach for her, and Violet's like, no, and like tries to like lean back. And then he stops, and he's like, I'm not doing this. She's injured. It's against regulations. I'm out. She passes out because Varys punches her in her already, like, dislocated shoulder, and she just passes out. And Nolan's in there mending her when she wakes up. Nolan says he was made to heal her so Varys can break her over and over, and that they're going to extend the training an extra day, which is not normal, and that Nolan basically has to stay. They're, like, underground in some interrogation room. So Nolan has to stay down there because Varys is planning on beating the heck out of her and then like mending her over and over. And he's like, you have to find a way out. So I think the door has a window in it. Like if you kind of like probably like
yeah.
That. And the window kind of opens and so it's unlocked and they can hear. Nolan goes out and tells Varys like, hey, will you like walk back with me because he needs help with a patient. And essentially, we assume it's whoever he's been working on. So we now know, like, Varys is in on it, which we assumed. So, Sawyer, I said he was down there. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. But he melts the lock. He starts to melt the lock on the door. And they get out of the first room, but then there's, like, another room. And nothing that he does will, like, melt this lock. But Violet has... What is it?
The dagger.
She has the dagger that has a relic in it. And it just unlocks it.
And something that I wanted to point out. So they said that nobody has ever escaped interrogation before. And the potion that they gave him is supposed to cut him off from the dragons, which then cuts him off from their powers. But... them faking it, they could use their powers, but
so,
they wouldn't have been able to get out of the
first room
if it weren't for the dagger.
Right. So they do get out, and and Professor Grady, who's over their ROC. He's new this year too, but he's fine. I mean, I don't think there's anything with him, but he's like sitting in a lawn chair or something, like waiting on whoever comes.
Yeah, I just imagine him sitting there with a book and just like
and he like looks up and he's like please, and they like point like the daggers at him. They're like, we'll take that patch now. So we find out that 2 other people died in interrogation. And another squad like comes up to them and is like, how did you get out? Because it like they said it took them a day to reset the room after they got out. Like it's a whole big like scandal now. They also learn that they're on their way to history class or war prep. I don't know, they have different classes. And they get in there and is this when they put all this stuff out?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they get in there and there's like all these like newsletters. And it says that a major city was attacked and 10,000 people died. And they say it was dragons that did it. So Professor Markham comes in and he's pissed because he's like, you know, why is this information out? And Violet knows that this news was printed here, and whoever told is in trouble. Like, she can tell from, like, the ink, like, it's not dry enough or whatever. So somebody did this and wanted this to get out.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that. So, prior to that, there was a scribe that walked past him with the hood up and everything. So, I mean, obviously... And she had mentioned, like, it scribe at this time, out of place in this.
Right.
But this, I believe that the scribe definitely had some part to play in the news that was left in Battle Brief. It was Battle Brief.
That's what it's called. I'm like, they have history and then they have Battle Brief.
Because the news would have to be printed on the printing press, which is in the archives. But, yeah, we know that they're scribes that would have had to work on it. And that just kind of leads me to wonder how many scribes are kind of at this point questioning how many scribes outside of Jacinia, because I mean, for all of that, there would have to be more than just one scribe, you know, working on getting this stuff printed. How many are
there? Yeah.
Are there that are aware that there's something shady going on, and
we don't get the answer to that.
Yeah.
So Professor Markham, like, is like, this is fake. And he goes, I'm disappointed because you guys couldn't figure it out. Which Violet had just said, like, if he's lying, he's going to deflect and, like, come up with something else. And so she was like, yep, he's lying. Like, he's deflecting. And so he sends out, like, one of the other girls to go somewhere. He tells her to, she runs off, and then, like, as he's, like, doing this deflecting and stuff, the most surprising thing, I think, prior to the end of this book happened that I was not expecting. She comes back in with Jack Barlow.
Oh, my God, yeah.
I said, how is that fair? How people die here every day. Why did you save him?
Of all people.
Of all people. I mean, I know why. But why? Like,
yeah.
What? When did they even get him from up under the mountain?
Right.
Like, how?
Right.
How?
Because the mountain fell on top of him. Like, they would have to excavate.
Yeah. I mean, maybe someone has a power that, like, I don't know.
Maybe.
But what the heck? We were done. That chapter was closed. So, there's that. We'll come back to that. Anywho, so they also get more information, and we learn that Xaden and Mira's post, Samara, was attacked. And the post was defended, but one rider was severely wounded. And Professor Navaar, that's her name.
Yes.
So she, like... Navaar. So Violet likes her. And she's, like, been trying to figure out really this whole time, like, which professors are good, which aren't. And so she's, like, talking, and she scratches the left side of her neck, which is the same place that Xaden's relic mark is. So Vi, like, gets up in the middle of class and is like, I'm out of here. And, like, they're like, where are you going? Like, you don't have leave. And she's like, I gotta go. Like, Bodhi comes up to her and, like, here, take my jacket, because she's, like, going straight to Taryn. She's not stopping. Taryn's like, let's go. Because obviously something happens to Xaden, something happens to Sigil, all these things. So they fly off. And when she gets there, the first person she runs into is Mira. Mira says she was gone during the attack. And Xaden is actually, she goes in there, she's pissed, because Xaden's down here fighting. She's like, what the hell? Like, you're fine. So he's like, what are you doing here? And Vi starts having a meltdown. So I love him. And I love this whole part. But, so he grabs her and, like, walks them off into the shower to cool off. And he shows her his upper arm, and there's, like, a nasty, like, red mark there. So you can tell he's been mended. And he said, like, he literally almost lost his arm. And she doesn't think that he loves her and wouldn't have done what she did, but he tells her he would. Like, and we know that. Like, we know he would have stormed off in the middle of the day if something was mentioned that could have happened. So they basically, like, are arguing, like, who wants who. And we remember, and Violet remembers back, that Xaden told her that if she ever wanted to win an argument with him, all she had to do was let her hair down. So she just, like, starts letting her hair down, because at this point she's like, I'm going to have sex with this man, and I don't blame you. So they have a little sexy time in the shower, and this time, in this book, Xaden uses his shadows to smother out her lightning so that they don't tear up everything. And I'm like, oh, I love them so much. I love him. That man is amazing. So he, like, every time, like, lightning would, like, shoot off, he, like, smothers it out. And so after this, of course, she's like, what are we now? And he says he was like, we can go again, or we can go upstairs and go again, or we can get dressed and go to the rendezvous point to, like, meet up and trade daggers. So, of course, like, that's what she wants to do. And they go and they meet with the same Griffin rider that they had met at Athbean, who is Serena. And Xaden says it was a Griffin that attacked him. So he said his injury only happened because he hesitated, because obviously they're working with some of them. And because he's like, what the heck, Serena? Like, what's going on or whatever. Violet notices that there's a girl with them, and she is, like, pissy, like, HBIC of whatever they got going on over there. And earlier in the book, Bodhi had mentioned something to her and was, like, basically, like, he knows, like, Xaden cares about her because he never acted that way about Catriona. And we find out that the girl that they're meeting with right now, that's with Serena, her name is Kat. And Kat speaks up, like, while Xaden and Serena are talking, and says that Xaden's basically willing to lose the war because he doesn't want to give up Violet. I'm like, what? And Serena calls her Catriona. So now Xaden's ex is in the picture. And of course Violet's pissed. Now, this I can agree with. So Violet asked Xaden, like, is she the ex? And I put duh. She asks what, and so we learned that there's a Viscount are they in Poromil? That's outside of Navaar. That's the country they border with. Yeah. Yes. So basically there's a Viscount, and Catriona is the Viscount's niece. So she's, like, third in line for the throne or something like that. She asked Xaden about it, and basically the Viscount has a luminary, which, again, that's what they wanted at the beginning of the book. And she's like, well, what does he want for it? And Xaden says he wants to see Violet wield her lightning. And she's like, okay, like, no big deal. But Xaden's like, no, it's not just that. Like, he likes to collect precious things and keep them against their will. So that's kind of where they leave off on this excursion. So she goes back. Obviously, she's prepared to be in trouble because she left, like, in the middle of the week with no permission. So when she gets back, she runs into General Milgren. And he says, you need to put all the blame on Taryn. Like, say Taryn was, like, stressed about Sigale, and dragons can influence their riders. And she's still a new rider, so she could, like, not have control or whatever. So when she gets to her room, she's, like, almost to her room, because she has daggers from Xaden. Or at least one. And Varish is waiting, of course, with his goon squad. And he tells her she's impersonating an officer because she's wearing Xaden's jacket, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Yep. Like, we all know who Xaden Ryerson is. Nobody's impersonating him. we all know who Violet Sorrengail is,
Right.
like, except for that one kid and that was trying to that killed Nadine, like, whatever. So Violet's like, and she has Bodhi's jacket because he gave it to her when they like left. So, and the reason she has Xaden's jacket is because Xaden was like, "You are not wearing Bodhi's jacket.
Right.
You're wearing mine. Mine. That man is possessive." He says that she's impersonating an officer by wearing Xaden's jacket, and all she can think about is like she has this dagger, and I can't remember if it was in her bag or in the jacket, and she needs to hide it. And while they're like outside the room, Rihanna like opens her door, and I think it's behind where Varys is standing.
Yeah.
So they don't see her, and like she shuts her door like just barely because like Violet is like trying to like mind speak through her eyeballs to her, but okay, but she doesn't know she gets it. So they like dump her bag out and looking through everything. And then Professor Kaori comes up and accuses Varys of abusing his power, as usual, and tells them that Violet was actually clear because Kaori went to somebody and was like, "This is Taryn's fault, not Violet." Like, emotions were high, and Varys gets pissed and, like, walks off. Kaori tells her, like, "You need to be careful because Varys is not going to stop trying to, get at you." So he leaves and she goes to look for the dagger, but it's gone. And then Rihanna opens her door and is like, "Get in here now." And Rihanna's power is like summoning, but she has never been able to do what she just did, which was summon something through a wall. So emotions were high and she pulled it through. And she's like, "What is this dagger?" Because obviously it has like the aloe tip or whatever. And like they know it's different until Vi says it's to kill venin. So in the room, it's Rhiannon, Riddick, and Sawyer. So that's basically like their squad for the year, those four. Yeah. And Violet tells them everything that happens since War Games. And my thought was, why the hell did you not go in your room? Because nothing comes from this, but Xaden we learned like last year after the attack, like Xaden had warded her room, and he did it this year when she switched rooms. So the only person that can get in Violet's room is her or Xaden, and it's like ward-proof, soundproof, like they can't hear anything from the outside. Because at one point, I don't remember when it was, like Rihanna knocks on their door and is like, "I know that you can hear me."
Yeah, so like you said, the only ones who can get in are Violet
and Xaden,
and anyone Violet pulls through.
Yeah, you have to be touching her while you're walking in, because Rihanna had tried to get in at one point, and like that's when they realized that Xaden had warded it. So I'm like, why? Nothing comes bad from this, but I'm like, why? I would be like, "Okay, I'm going to tell you everything, but we have to go across the hall."
Because he soundproofed it, too.
Yeah, so I'm like, I wouldn't tell them anything in there. But nothing, yeah. I was just like a thought. I was like, duh.
Same thing. Same thinking.
So I'm like, she tells them like everything. And yeah, so they're kind of, she doesn't tell them, did she tell them about Horatio though? I think she told him everything about War Games. And
but not Horatio.
Like, not about Brennan and not all the details, but enough. Like, she tells him enough. About the venin and stuff, though. And they're basically like, Rhea is not pissed. Because she's like, she understands. Like, she's upset a little bit, but she gets it. Like, and she's basically like, it's our decision if we put ourselves in danger. Which is the same thing Violet says all the time. So, whatever. Moving on, it is threshing time. And of course, like, Violet's like stressed about Sloane because Sloane's not back and they've been out there for hours. Arik bonds, of course he would. And Sloane does end up bonding, and she bonds a red daggertail, which is the same kind of dragon that Liam had. And I'm like, oh, it's precious. So Violet has to go like relieve somebody on watch. They watch like the different towers and stuff. And so when she gets up there, is it Aya?
Aya, yeah.
Aya's up there, which is one of the people that was with them at Resin. And the crazy thing about this is that Riddick was like, oh, I'll go. And she was like, no, like, I'll do it. Like, whatever. You go wherever you had to go. So they get up there and they start talking. And then a bunch of, like, infantry soldiers rush them. Which I didn't look. Well, they can't be venin. Because they don't have powers. Okay. I'll take that right out. But.
And they're older infantry, too. So it's not like
cadet. They're not cadets. Yeah. So a bunch of, like, older infantry, like, graduated soldiers come and they say they were paid to kill Vi. And do they say the same thing about the secret? They say that
no, they go to, but Vi interrupts them and says it, and she was like, yeah, not so original.
Yeah, like, it's the third time. Okay, I get it. So they kill Aya, and the first thing I thought was, like, good thing she didn't trade with Riddick, because they were planning on her being there. And, like, she's fighting and she's doing pretty good, but then she gets thrown, like, off the side of this tower and she's basically hanging on. But she hears someone come and, like, stab the last attacker. And it's Jack Barlow. So he grabs her and he's like, Violet, like, he didn't realize it was her. And he says he saved her because he didn't know it was her. And so he pulls her up. And she's obviously like, okay, this is my first time, like, having close encounters with him. There's nobody here. I killed him. He's tried to kill me multiple times. But he's, like, creepily pleasant. And he says, like, he was nearby. He heard screaming. And he's like, riders don't die by infantry. So he's like, you know what? We're even now. We've both been given second chances. Then Riddick comes and says, like, Jasenia has found out how to get through the wards. But they are going to need someone in the king's bloodline. Good thing that we have Arik. And that's when we learn that Xaden killed Arik's brother. So Xaden ends up coming for the weekend. They're going to do this on the Saturday. And pretty much every time that Violet has met with Jasenia, there's, like, some other scribe down there who is always asleep. Like, he's supposed to be, like, a guard, but he's always asleep. So, basically, the whole, like, team goes down there. Like, Xaden... First of all, it's funny because they all wear scribe clothes except for Xaden. Xaden's like, I'm in black and I have shadows. I'm not wearing a scribe uniform. Like, whatever. So, like, Xaden down there, Imogen, like, everybody goes. And, like, some of them, like, fall behind in different places to kind of, like, protect. They get down there, of course, Xaden, like, knocks some people out. He does his little power moves, whatever. And Arik and Vi go through the wars, check the books. So, like, Arik goes through, and then he, like, pulls Vi. And Xaden's pissed because he's like, you didn't even know if that was going to work. But it did. It just, like, made her feel sick or something like that. And then, like, they are, like, looking, but they basically only have, like, 10 minutes at this point to look. And they're looking for journals. So there are 2 journals from 2 of the first 6 people that built the wards. And they assume that it's in here. And when they get in there, you know, Ark's like, his dad's flashy, showy, like... And that's what Violet says, too. Like, he wouldn't have hidden this. Because first they're looking in, like, drawers and stuff. Because it's old and they want to protect it. But they basically see, like, this glass box or something. Something like that. And so Arik, like, goes to get him out. And it literally burns his hand. So that part must have been warded, like, just to the king. But he gets it out. And they, like, had 2 seconds left. So they're, like, running out. And one of the books goes with Xaden, and she keeps the other one because he's going to take his book to Brennan. And he leaves early because he needs enough time to get to Brennan and then get back to Samara. So everybody splits up because there's, like, something going on, and they're like, okay, we need to be seen. Like, we want to be seen.
Need an alibi.
Yeah. So she's just, like, in the, like, quadrant or whatever. Nolan comes up and is like, hey, you want some lemonade? And I'm like, no! What is wrong with you? You have spent all this time not drinking the stuff.
Right.
So I'm like, oh. So he tells her that he doesn't like to see her hurt. And as soon as that he says that, she realizes the taste and she loses her connection with Taryn. And Nolan tells her, like, he can't protect her from her consequences. And Violet wakes up in a prison cell, and this was like, oh, this was rough.
Yeah.
So she's down in the like prison cell interrogation, like same area, and like the whole time she describes it as like wet and like dank, earthy, like that kind of smell.
Kind of dungeony.
Yeah. Ugh. So we learn, like, she hears them talking, like, Varys and them, and her mom is gone for a week. So they're basically like, that's how long we have to do whatever we're going to do. They only have her, and they have what's called a truth teller. And so she's like a human lie detector.
Mm-hmm.
And so she can tell if someone's lying. So Violet's like, okay, I'm only going to be able to give selective truths. And she, like, they start asking her questions, and she doesn't lie. Like, they were like, I don't even remember what he asked. I can't remember. But he asked them, and she doesn't, like, she is giving selective truths. So Varys, like, he literally starts beating the crap out of her. And I text Keeley because I was like, I have the physical book, but I was listening to this on audiobook. But something like, I just, like, opened my book and, like, flipped through it, and I was like, Liam. And it was like Liam was talking. Violet starts hallucinating Liam. That's so sad. And basically, Liam is like her support. Like, he's like, don't tell him, or don't believe him, or, stay strong.
You're doing so good.
Yeah, like, oh, it's so sad. So, we learned that, because Arik's hands got burned, when he basically reached into that box, it set off an alarm to Melgren.
I think so.
I think it was Melgren. And, like, duh. Like, I don't know why they didn't think about that. But they basically sent cadets out to, like, look at everyone's hand. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't find them burned because before they all split up, Violet said, go to this healer that owed her a favor. And so they were able to heal his hands before they, like, checked on everyone. And Varys suggests, like, maybe we need to bring her friends down here because that'll break her. But they're like, no, I don't know if it'll work. And we find out that she's been down there for 2 days now. Varys knows that she's trying to ward something, but he doesn't know just what. And we learn that his signet is basically, like, he can see weaknesses in people. Mm-hmm. And I put, how am I only halfway through this book? Because I was like, what is
so much happened?
I know. And so basically Varys' plan is he's going to wait for Xaden to come and save her, and then he's going to break him. And I was going to stop right here before I realized that there was actually an actual part 1 and part 2. So we're going to keep going. So Varys does the Dane trick again and pulls Dane down here. And of course, well, no, they're mending her. So she's getting, like, fixed a little bit. So that whole thing about, like, well, I'm not going to do it because she's not healed or whatever. And Varys tells Dane that she's a rebel, and that's all Dane needs to hear. So he reaches out, and she's like, no, but he keeps going this time. So she's like, okay, well, I'm going to make him see what I want him to see. So she just starts thinking about Resin and Athbean and, like, trying to, like, force the memories of, like, Liam dying and all this stuff. So he touches her, and then he's like, oh my god, like, you're a rebel. And so she's like, crap, like, it didn't work. Like, the one thing I had to do. And she's like, the whole time she's like, I apologize to Xaden, and, like, hopefully nothing happens to Taryn, and then Darna makes it, and, like, just all these things. And so Dane says he saw smuggling weapons, and then he acts like he's gonna go and kill her, and then he stabs Varys and frees her. And I was like, yeah, I would put yes. And then Daddy Xaden comes in, and kills everybody else. And Bodhi is behind him, and, like, Garrick, and they're like, damn, like, he like killed like 10 people or something. He's like, you didn't even wait for us. Xaden then killed, like, everybody on the path to get to Violet. And I'm like, love me like that. Love me like that. So he binds Varys to the chair with his shadows, and he said something about him killing him, or like Dane was going to kill him, and he's like, no, like Violet gets to kill him. And Xaden finally tells her that he loves her. Oh, so they're getting ready to leave, and then Lilith comes in. So her mom is back, and she's worried, and she gives Violet an antidote for the serum, which she doesn't take right away, but she does end up taking later. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I knew she was good. I'm telling you, it was like biblical. I'm like, they made Lilith out to be like a bad person, but I was like, no, I know this. So she says like she would have come sooner, but she didn't know. I think they purposely like sent her wherever she had went. And she asked to speak to Violet alone, and Xaden was like, no, but she was like, that's the least you can do, is give me a chance to say goodbye. So she knows they're getting ready to leave and go somewhere, and she's not here to stop them. She tells Violet, when you have children, we can discuss the lies you'll be willing to tell and the risks you'll be willing to take. And she basically tells Violet, like, I forced you to be a writer because Markham was planning on her being like the head scribe. And she said she knew that once she became a scribe, she would find out the information and she would be killed. You know, Markham thought that Violet was going to be easy control. She's weak. She's all these things. But Lilith knew that Violet would not stand for this stuff, and that if she found out the truth, that she would be killed.
So she was wanting to give her at least a fighting chance.
Yeah, and she would have, like, powers and, like, the ability to do that if she made it. And so she's like, I put you in the writer's quadrant to give you a chance to survive. And she said, then I caught in a favor from Ryerson. I was like, oh my God. Because I was like, there's going to be another secret and Violet's going to be all blah, 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 blah. So she basically says that basically when Xaden made that deal about the Mark ones being in the writer's quadrant, she also had like made a favor with him, and she basically asked Xaden to keep her from dying her first year as a favor. And I was like, oh great. Okay. Oh yeah, so Lilith made a deal with Xaden, like, or called in a favor, and basically was like, I want you to keep her from dying as a favor in first year, which is later on Violet thinks about that, and like, so she starts questioning everything that he does, but that's why he didn't like kill her initially. So Violet asks about the scars and asks if she's the one that gave them to him, and she says yes. Her mom tells them they need to get out and that Violet is all that she has left of their father. So before they leave, they decide they're going to call a formation and tell all the students what's going on and give everyone the same chance. And they use Dane because Dane's believable. So Dane gets up there and tells everyone. And we learn, and Darna is still asleep, which it's been way too long. So it only was supposed to be like a couple of weeks, but it's been months at this time. Yeah. But they're still planning on flying with her. Remember, she has like that little
harness,
that little baby harness. So they strap her in, and they basically, like, the dragons know as well, and so the dragons have like the choice. So we learned that the Empyrean has been like on the fence about what to do this whole time, and so his decision was if they want to do it, they can. If they don't have to. And so they can decide whether or not to share the truth with the writer. So there's like bickering going on because, you know, they think they're lying and all this stuff. And then Professor Carr comes in and tries to like throw fire, but Bodhi stops him. And because his signet is like to counter signets. And then Professor Devera says she wants to join them. And she was we do learn, she was the one that left the papers in class that day. And so we learned that 200 dragons, 101 writers, and then like a dozen scribes decide to fly out. And they fly to Erasia, and Brennan comes out. And that is the end of part 1.
Yep.
So, Thoughts on part 1.
Freaking crazy, dude.
Chaotic, wild.
Yeah. And, it would have been a perfectly good, just book itself.
That's what I thought. You should have just, cut it there.
Well, and, I read an interview, with Rebecca, and she had mentioned that originally when she was writing it, she was like, I think I have 2 books.
Oh, gosh.
And, her editor was like, I think you have 2 parts. So, I mean, initially it was going to be more books. But
I don't know. Either way. I mean, I like it, but it could. I mean, I wouldn't have been mad if it stopped there. So, that Liam stuff really, it really broke me. Because I was like, oh, he's back. So, all right. So, we don't have, a lot of discussion and stuff for this part because we're getting ready to do part 2.
And we don't want to give anything away.
Yes. So, yeah. So, next week will be part 2 of this. We're going to record it right now, but that'll be next week for you guys. I am so sorry, but we're already at an hour 45, basically. So, then the next part might be a little bit longer. So, geez, I'm so sorry. But, yeah, so I think that is it. And if you're not already, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yep.
And you can listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and make sure to review, and share our episodes.
And on these particular episodes about Iron Flame, please share your theories. We'd love to talk theories with you guys.
Yeah, and if I won't be able to add anything, but we can always I don't know, we can talk about
discuss
it later.
Yeah,
we can have editor's notes later, but we love to have discussion, or we can discuss somewhere else. So,
and we can definitely discuss theories as well when it comes to the next book.
Yes, anytime. We love it. So, all right, that's it. Bye. Bye.